There is one killer mistake that you are making that is stopping you from becoming a consistently profitable trader. And in this video, I'm gonna reveal that mistake, and I'm also gonna be sharing with you how to actually solve it. And I'm just gonna tell you straight away that the mistake is what I call analysis paralysis. Now, I know what you may be thinking, oh great, I've heard that 100 times. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But I'm telling you, the way that I'm gonna be explaining it to you today is completely different to the generic analysis paralysis that you've probably heard before. Now, if I'm right in saying that if you have heard of analysis paralysis, it's likely been that analysis paralysis is essentially just over-analyzing a chart and not being able to, understand what's going on, or not being able to actually be confirmed on a bias, for example. And that's a very, very small part of it. But analysis paralysis is so much deeper than that. And so this is the actual mistake that you're making, but you need to actually understand what this is. This isn't you getting to the markets and not knowing what to do. So the best way, I think, for me to kind of share this with you, and the reason I'm so confident that this is the number one mistake that you're making, is by sharing my personal story of how I went from probably exactly where you are right now, which is kind of just constantly consuming YouTube videos or buying courses and hoping that something clicks, right? Maybe you already have a decent understanding of how to read the market, but you're just not able to make money. You're not able to consistently place trades. You don't have a proven profitable trading strategy. You're kind of just finding yourself, showing up to the markets, analyzing price, but not really being able to consistently take trades and obviously consistently make money. And that's why you're on YouTube. You're on YouTube because you're likely just searching for, new concepts or new strategies, hoping that you'll just stumble across one video that will just kind of make everything make sense. And then that one video will make you money. And I'm here to tell you that was the exact path that I was on, and it didn't really go well. There was something that I realized on that journey, and that's what I want to share with you in this video. And I think that when you understand it, it will change everything, as it did for me. At least that's my hopes anyway. For me, right, I started trading, with the same goal that you probably have right now, which is I want to make money from trading and I want to experience the freedom. I think that's why we all get into trading. We want money and we want freedom. We don't want to have a boss telling us what to do. We want to be able to do what we want and still be able to make a lot of money. The thing is we don't really know how to get to that goal. At least I didn't. I thought that if I wanted to make money trading, then all I had to do was understand how to read the market, right? When I first started trading, I was like, okay, I want to make money with this thing. Okay, what do I need to do? Okay, well, I need to understand how it works. If I can read it, if I know where it's going to go, then I'll be able to make money, right? I'll just buy at this level and sell at that level, or I'll sell here and then, close the position here, whatever it is. So that's what I thought. And so like you did, and maybe you probably are still at this point in time, I started with information. I would go to YouTube and I would watch YouTube videos. And at the beginning, as cringy as it sounds, I started off with all these kind of lifestyle guys flashing their Lamborghinis, promising, the world. And that's kind of what got me into it. And those are the videos that I kind of watched in the beginning. Over time, I started to kind of, understand that that's not really what's going to make you money. Someone else's lifestyle isn't going to teach me how to trade. I need to actually understand how to read the markets. And so then I would just constantly be looking for technical videos, right? How do I actually read the market? That was my only goal. When I first opened the markets, and I can imagine you was pretty much the same thing, you're just here and you're absolutely confused, right? You have this big audacious goal of making money from this financial market, but when you open up TradingView or whatever charting software you're using, it's like you're looking at a completely foreign language. And that's what it was like for me, at least anyway. And so I realized that I needed information because I was confused. And if I had information, then I wouldn't be confused anymore. And if I'm not confused, then I'll make money. So as I said, I started learning technical analysis, and it was excruciatingly painful at the beginning. I would watch YouTube videos and they would make it seem so simple and so easy, and it just made sense. Until I tried it, right? Until I actually went to the market myself and tried to do these things that I was seeing in these videos. And at that point, I realized, okay, this may be a little bit harder than it looks. It may take a little bit more time, but that's something I was okay with. So I did. I spent countless months, every single day, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I didn't have a job at the time. I was just all in on learning how to trade. And so I did, and eventually, I started to see a little bit of progress, right? At the beginning, I didn't know anything, right? I was completely fresh. I was a complete beginner. I didn't understand what a pip was. I didn't understand what a tick was, what a contract was. I understood nothing, right? But after kind of just continuously showing up and putting the reps in and, kind of just day by day like this, and I was just, making progress. And I was starting to be able to see this market differently. And about 3 months into my journey, if I compare that with the beginning of the journey, I had made a huge change, because now I was able to start seeing things, right? So I would mark some things up on the charts, and then I would come back later and I would see that those things had started happening. Now, of course, a lot of the things didn't, but the fact that I was able to think something would happen, and even if once out of 10 times it happened, that gave me a massive confidence boost in essentially my journey. And that's kind of what kept me going. Those small little progresses that made me feel like I was developing, that's what kept me going. And so that's what I did. I just literally sponged countless YouTubes. I brought a bunch of courses, a lot of them not great, some of them a little bit better than others, but eventually I'd say probably somewhere around maybe the 6-month mark, right? I was finally starting to get a lot of a better grip on price, right? I had found my little kind of way that I wanted to read the market, and I was, all in on smart money concepts. I forgot anything else that I had learned prior, and I was starting to really, be able to see things before they happened. And it got to a point where I felt like, maybe I'm ready to start going to make money. And I think it was a little bit premature of me, but I guess we all kind of have that, eagerness to do such. So that's what I did. I purchased my first funded account, and again, really bad idea. I don't advise purchasing a funded account unless you're actually ready, but I didn't know any better. I would show up every single day to the markets, London session, New York session, and I would try to trade. And I would get to the market and I would try to analyze the market, but I didn't have any level of confidence in my analysis, like such low level confidence in actually thinking that something was going to play out. It's a completely different ball game when you're just marking things up on the charts versus now you're ready to really start taking trades on an account. It becomes a different ball game. And so that's when I faced my first kind of, big problem with analysis paralysis. And the way I experienced it is, I guess, hesitation. So I would come to the market, before London session would start, and I would mark out all my zones and, all my analysis for the day. And I'm like, okay, if this happens, I'm going to try and do this. And then price would start playing out. Maybe there'd be an opportunity where it was possible that I could get involved in the market right now. But, the little voice in my head, every time that happened, it was like, just kind of made me hesitate. I was like, oh, I don't know whether I should actually take this trade. I mean, am I seeing it right? Like, is this actually correct? I would start panicking and I would start hesitating. And what would happen is I would end up hesitating to the point, right, where I would maybe not take that trade. And so I would avoid taking a trade. And that trade then would end up, let's say, winning. Now, all of a sudden, I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, I seen this opportunity. I was going to take the trade, but I wasn't confident, which again is completely understandable. It is impossible to have any level of confidence in your trading if you don't have a proven profitable trading strategy. I should not have been trading a live account, either your own money or a prop firm like I did. You should not be trading that if you don't have an edge. I don't care what anybody tells you. And so I had no confidence because I don't have an edge, which is obvious now that I look at it backwards. But that trade, for example, would run into a win. And then I'd be thinking in my head, like, oh, if I would have just taken that trade and I would have risked this much money, then I would have passed this account. And all of a sudden, in 3 weeks from now, I'd be, as we do, our imaginations run wild of what's possible. But then what would happen is then I would go searching and hunting for another opportunity because I just missed this one. And so then I would start to try to force the things that I knew, right? I would try to make things happen. Oh, there's an order block here, for example, right? Oh, there's an order block here, and actually it broke this level. Oh, it's okay, maybe I'll just take a trade from here. And so then all of a sudden, because I had missed out on this and hesitated on this, then I would essentially have FOMO, right? And then I would start taking below average trades, right, in hindsight. And then what I would end up experiencing was probably a loss. And this happened for a while. You know, I would sometimes take a trade and sometimes not take a trade. And eventually, you know, I ended up blowing the account multiple times. You know, I was doing all this random action. And again, like I said, some of the trades that I would take, obviously I would win. Like I wasn't losing every trade. And those little wins, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've gone through it. Those little wins, that's what gives you the hope that, you know what, no, I do actually understand something here. Like I do get it. It's just something's missing. And that's the conclusion that I came to. I came to the conclusion that, okay, well, I have something, but something's missing. So I need more information. That's fine. Let's go back to the drawing board, right? So after repeating that specific cycle for too long, and this time, you know, I'm still watching videos, I'm still learning, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'm really trying to also spend as much time as I can actually trading and kind of chasing the market, if you would. That's the reality of what's happening. But I would then be like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to take another funded challenge. I'd already spent thousands of dollars and wasted thousands of dollars on funded challenges. I was already pretty pissed at myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to YouTube and I'm going to go and find another trading strategy, right? Let me go and search more trading strategy videos. And so I would go back to YouTube, right? I would go back to YouTube and I would look for more strategies. And then I would watch more strategies, and in these strategy videos, they're talking about different concepts that I hadn't already, you know, learned of. And then I'd be like, okay, well, what's that concept? Okay, now let me, you know, go and learn what's that new concept. And then I would go and find videos on that new concept. And then the person talking about that concept was also talking about a different concept. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm down this rabbit hole again, where now I'm just learning all of these new things. And then what happened was, you know, I felt like I was making progress at the time, because now I was like, oh my God, like I didn't know these things before. Like, okay, I've definitely made progress now. Okay, now I'm ready to go back again. And so I did. And so I took all the new information that I'd learned on top of anything that I'd already previously learned as well. And I went back to the markets. Again, very silly mistake of mine. I just thought I was ready. And unfortunately, no one was telling me not to do it. I really wish someone did. I wish, you know, I had this type of video when I was starting, but no one told me not to. And so I did. I went again and I was purchasing challenges, and I would do the same thing. So I would, you know, purchase a funded account, right? And then I would, you know, I thought I had this strategy. I'd have in my notebooks, you know, okay, I'm going to trade this time. Okay, when I see this, I'm going to do that. And it was all just very vague. There was no rules for, okay, this is this, that is that. There was no data, absolutely not. And so I'd purchase the account, and again, I would go back to live trading. But this time, to my absolute shock, to be honest with you, it was even harder than the first time. And the reason that it was harder than the first time is because I was experiencing a new level of analysis paralysis. Because now, I was hesitating before, but now I would start to see so many things going on, right? I'll see structure on this end, and I'll see this liquidity here, and this version of structure looks like this, and this time frame says this, and there was so much information. That is the typical analysis paralysis, right? And that's what I was getting. I was getting to the point where it was even more confusing than the beginning, because now I would see what I thought was an opportunity. And so I'd get ready and get everything set up. And then I've already got a lot of fear around taking trades because I'd blown so much account. So it's like, okay, I really need to make sure that, you know, I get this one right. And so, you know, I would kind of look for opportunities, right? I would seek opportunity. And then when I found opportunity, just as much opportunity that I found reasons as to why I shouldn't take this trade. And so I was analyzing the market, and I was like, okay, you know, that looks good. Maybe I'll do this. And then it gets time to do it, and I'd start, you know, placing my order on something, and I'm have my order on, and I'm looking at the markets whilst I'm waiting for price to come back and tag me in or something. And I'm like, well, actually, you know, if I go to the 3-hour time frame, there's this little and maybe I shouldn't take this trade. And, you know, it was just a whole cycle that I was going through. And because I didn't know where to go from there, I didn't know, again, I'm going to tell you where you need to go. I'm just going to outline the journey that I took and the problems that I faced. And maybe you kind of resonate a little bit. Maybe you're facing these challenges right now, or maybe you have faced them. I'm trying to kind of outline that so we can get to the solution and how I finally made everything click. Because fortunately, something did click, and what it was that clicked is what I want to share with you today in this video. So yeah, that was happening. And again, because I didn't know anything other than, just learn more information, I basically got so caught up in this idea of being able to read the market that I kind of lost touch with the idea of how you actually make money in the market, right? And I didn't realize that until later on. But now I look back on it, I realize that, it's not information that's going to make you money. It's not knowing a bunch of concepts. It's not being able to perfectly read the market that makes you money. I mean, heck, I make money some days and I'm wrong. That's real trading. And so again, it wasn't until later that I discovered that, but we'll get to that point. So I was at that point and I was probably feeling more lost than ever before, right? And my journey was kind of like this. You start off here, right? This is kind of you at neutrality. You have this goal of making money from trading, and you start learning and you start actually seeing progress, right? That's what happens to you. You start seeing progress, and this is kind of your mood. You get euphoric. Oh, I'm making progress. Oh, soon I'm going to be able to buy a Lambo, whatever it is, retire my parents or quit my job or, take my family on that vacation. Whatever your goal is you feel like you're getting closer to that goal. And then again, like I said, what happens is at some point you start to realize, actually, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. It's going to take a lot more than I thought it was. And then you start going through all of these trials and tribulations when you start to really try and do it properly. And then you end up in this place, right? So you're pretty neutral. You're like, hey, I'm going to try this thing out. This is the goal, da, 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 da. You start and everything's great because, how can anything not be great when you're right at the beginning? All you can do is make progress. But the problem is then you want to try to turn that information into money. And that's when you realize that actually, I don't know what I'm doing. And this area here is a very dark place to be. And maybe some of you are there right now. Maybe some of you are heading into that area, or maybe some of you are just kind of coming out of that area. And again, I've been through this entire period. And so, yeah, that's kind of where you end up. And this is where that area really was for me. I was just lost. I thought that all this information was working, but at the end of the day, the information wasn't paying the bills, right? Time was going on. I had invested months and months and months into this craft and I had nothing to show for it, right? I was kind of ashamed with my progress. Everything else that I had tried in life, I'd seemed to achieve some level of success, pretty quickly. Because in life, unlike trading, with most things, you can start seeing results quickly. Trading doesn't really work like that. Results in trading is money made. And I always say trading is the hardest easy money that you will ever make in your life. It's so hard to get to the point that it's easy, but once it's easy, it's just easy, right? It's crazy. So yeah, this is kind of the area that I was. I was lost, I was confused, I didn't know where to go from here. The only thing that I could think of was just more, right? And this is what you can kind of see how this ends up affecting us, right? Because it's just constant analysis paralysis. It's constantly the need for more, right? You're searching more information, more strategies, and you're thinking and hoping that the information that you find is what's going to fix your problems. And the reality is that's not what it is. But again, we're going to get to that. So that's what I did, right? I went back to the drawing board again because I didn't know any other way. And so then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? Maybe what I'm doing does work, but maybe it's just kind of inferior. Maybe there's a better way to do it. Back to YouTube, more strategies, more concepts, more of the same things. And I think it was Einstein who said it, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I didn't obviously understand that at that time. I didn't think I was doing the same thing over and over again until I looked back on it and realized oh yeah, that's just the same cycle that I was repeating. I think we all go through this. This is why I say that it's the number one mistake, because it's not necessarily, just one thing that you do. It's really just the process of kind of how you end up eventually achieving success. Hopefully, if you find how to actually get out of this pitfall, which again, I'm going to share with you. And I'm super grateful that I was able to discover. So again, like I said, I went back just for more strategies, more videos, more everything, blah, 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 more inconsistency, more failed challenges. And it was extremely difficult for me. And then at some point along the way, I realized that I actually have so much information. I actually do know all of these concepts on how to read the market. Like if you sit me down with someone who, is fairly new to trading or doesn't really know too much, like I could start telling them so many things about the markets and, this structure and this delivery and all these different time frames and how it all correlates and, liquidity and stop losses. And I had a lot of information, but what I didn't have any results, right? I didn't have any money and I didn't have an edge, right? And so somewhere along the way, I realized that I had all this information. So my problem wasn't information. I mean, what I know does work, right? But I'm just not applying it in the way that it works. That was the big epiphany for me. And that is, kind of part of the solution. And so I had this realization, got all this information, I'm just not applying it. It's like, okay, well, how do I apply it? Like, how do I make sense of all of this noise and all of this mess? I think I was reading a book, Trading the Zone. It's like, you don't have to be right to make money. That realization that you don't have to be right to make money wouldn't leave me alone. It's like, you don't have to be right to make money. At the beginning, I was like, that's just ridiculous. Like, what do you mean you don't have to be right to make money? Of course you have to be right to make money. I was like, well, I mean, technically, if you expect the price to go all the way there and it didn't, it only got halfway and you took the trade and you made money, it wasn't technically right. Again, still not really, don't want to accept it, doesn't want to sit with me. And that's when I had the realization that somewhere along the way, I got stuck in this idea of acquiring information. And I didn't realize that information acquisition is the first thing you do. And so I see this all the time. I see traders who have been trading 5 years and they are still stuck in information acquisition. They're still looking for new concepts. They're still looking for new magic strategies. They're still looking at videos on how this person flipped this account to this account. They're still looking for information, and their problem isn't information, it's that they don't know what to do with that information, right? If you sit down with some of these people, I mean, we've had it ourselves inside of our inner circle. Traders have come in for 5 years. You sit down and talk to him, he comes in like, yeah, I know this, I know market structure, I know da 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 da. How are you where you are? And it's because they don't know how to take all of that information and organize it and sift through it till you get to a point where you just have something that makes money. And that was the disconnect. The thing is that I didn't need to be a perfect master of the market. At some point along the way, I got lost. And I had this idea that in order to make money, I have to be able to read the market perfectly. I have to be able to predict every single day's price action. I needed to predict pinpoint accuracy. It's gonna come from here and then return to here. I felt like I needed to master the system, but that's not actually how you make money in trading. You see, trading is just an inefficient operating machine that you can get in the middle of its inefficiency and make money in between. All you really need is a playbook, right? You just need a playbook that works, right? And many of you may be thinking like, what's a playbook? Yada, yada, yada. Or maybe you're thinking, oh, I know what a playbook is. Isn't that just a strategy? Or, hey, I've seen a million playbooks, or hey, I've seen a bunch of playbooks. The reality is you haven't. You've seen more of the first phase, which is just information, just kind of unorganized into a bunch of random rules. No, what you need is you need to be able to take all the information that you have and then properly organize it, sort it out, and start making a real edge. Because to make money in trading, you just have to have something that works enough to make money. And then once you have something that has an edge, which is a statistical probability, so if you take 100 trades, at the end of those 100 trades, there will be a profit. If you have that, then it becomes, all I need to do to make money is to just be able to follow that. But nobody teaches you how to build the edge. Everybody just teaches you these fancy concepts and these fancy strategies because, again, like I said, it's just so much more attractive. Like the video that I'm creating right now, this is for real traders who are actually making progress. And if you've watched this far, you're obviously probably deeply into it. And so it's for traders like you who are actually serious about trading. There's not many of you. There are a lot more people who want to just watch videos of people buying Lamborghinis with trading profits. because they're just stuck in this fantasy land of hope. Or there's a lot of these, people that just want to look for the magic strategy and the magic concept that's going to make them money. I could easily make other videos on this strategy that made me $1 million in the last 12 months. It's going to get way more clicks, but it's not really going to give any value because you're not going to be able to do anything with it. So what you need to know is this. You need to make that transition. You need to move from analysis paralysis into just organizing your information, into building a system, right? A system that makes you money. It's your system that makes you money. And again, like I said, that's the realization that I had. And when I had that realization, I went away, and honestly, no one really taught me how to do it. I slowly but surely figured it out myself. But I figured out how to actually build a system, something that had an edge, something that I could come to the market with and just follow the rules and not have to obsess over whether, I think this is going to play out or there's this other information. I needed something that just worked and worked enough to the point where if I just followed it, I would make money. That's what I needed. And that's when, after God knows how long, that's when eventually I created my TOS, right? My Traders Operating System. And this was the big shift for me. This changed everything. My Traders Operating System was able to take me from being constantly stuck in just trying to acquire new information, right? New concepts, new this, new that, right? Thinking that that was the answer. And instead of that, I realized I have all this information. What I need is a system. I need to be able to do something with all this information and turn it into money. And so I built the Traders Operating System. When I ran that through that system, is what enabled me to take all the information I have, and on the other end of that TOS, I was able to come out with an actual proven, profitable playbook, right? A proven trading strategy. What happened is I ended up discarding so many of the concepts that I'd learned, right? I'd learned all of these concepts, right? I could literally now, so many concepts that I don't use because I don't need it. Because making money in trading isn't about knowing all the concepts. Making money in trading is just about having something that has an edge and then doing it, right? And so that's essentially what I did. I eventually figured out how to build a playbook. I eventually, once I built a playbook, I realized that there was actually a couple more issues like psychology and stuff. And then I built a system around, how to actually manage and operate myself. And then I built another system, right? It basically is 3 systems. My TOS is 3 systems. And within these systems, it organized my entire trading. And so I was no longer needing more information. I just cut out everything that didn't work, focused on what did work, and made sure that it worked by actually testing, by actually collecting data, right? By actually building something that if I just follow it, it works. And that's when it hit me, was that you don't have to be right in order to make money. You just need to have something that works well enough and just follow your rules. And if you do it long enough period of time, you will eventually make money. And so that is, again, what I said, that's what I built, my Traders Operating System. And in fact, I have an entire 45-minute free video if you want it. I'll link it down in the description. Basically just me breaking down this entire Traders Operating System. Like I said, it's completely free. It will take you, through all of the different pillars of my system. And again, like I said, the TOS is what transitioned me from just everything that I just explained to you. All the analysis paralysis, all the problems that I went through of what you're going through right now, because the reality is if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're still in that cycle. That's why you're still watching YouTube videos. I'm saying, you'd never catch me watching a YouTube video on a concept or a trading strategy because I don't need to. I have all the information that I need to be able to consistently build systems, right? And consistently collect data and know all the information about my trading. I'm completely self-sufficient, independent. I don't need anything else. It's not more information that's going to get you that in terms of new concepts, new strategies, right? It's having a system. It's what I call the TOS. I'll kind of leave that link in the description because that is what will break down everything. And if you thought what I shared with you just now will help you, that is what this is really about. The real solution to analysis paralysis will be so much deeper in the Traders Operating System. Again, I'll link that in the description. It's completely free. So yeah, enjoy.